Well, hello there and welcome back. This is episode 31 of my Minecraft 1.15 Let's Play. I'm back at my base on my floating island and we've got a little visitor over here. I haven't spent a whole lot of time here and it's starting to show some signs of neglect, like this flying machine over here that's stuck in the middle of the air, and I had a creeper show up, the first mob I've seen on this island in a long time, and he caught me just as I was leaving my sugarcane farm and blew the elevator there to bits. So I'm gonna have to fix that, and I've spent an hour or two managing all the items in my storage system. It was getting a little messy over here. And I brought back a whole bunch of items. I actually got to keep most of the items from all of those flying machines. Like basically you just tear the flying machines down and you get most of the items back, but still those were some really expensive episodes. I went through something like 3 shulker boxes full of golden rails. Between the invisibility potions and the fire resistance potion, I probably went through a dozen shulker boxes of potions. I lost a bunch of equipment. My elytras are down pretty low from various deaths. I mean, I consider that low. I had more than a shulker box than I had another shulker box. So I've lost quite a bit of that. I lost some shulker boxes, just a few. I'm almost completely out of sand and gravel because I used most of it to fill up the lava, and I went through so many rockets. Like I can't even imagine how many rockets I went through. So I think it's time to spend a little bit of time on maintenance and just getting everything back to normal, because I haven't been back to this base in a while. Don't worry, I don't think this is going to be a boring episode at all. I've actually got an idea for a farm or two, but I think we want to start with the flying island down here. We've got this big hole here. If I finish this up, this would be the first quarter of the thing done, and I think I can do that at this episode, so I'm going to start with that. But before I do that, I'm pretty much completely out of vines, so I need to set up. I tore down that old vine farm that I set up when I first started doing that, and I think I'm going to have to do that again because I've got, 64 vines and not much of this mossy cobble. So I'm definitely going to have to do that first, and then we'll start working on the flying island. I think that this is easily the most ambitious project I have ever worked at in Minecraft. I started this thing back in November and I've been working on it fairly diligently since, and I am now a quarter of the way done. And now that I've gotten this far along though, I can finally remove all this scaffolding and we can get a good unobstructed view of the floating island and the shape that it's taking. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how this is turning out. This is almost exactly how I envisioned this when I first came up with this idea. I think this looks pretty cool. It's pretty clear, since I'm only a quarter way through the island, that I'm going to need quite a bit more vines. And I don't enjoy having to just come back and set up the same thing over and over again, this manual farm, and I don't really enjoy the process of harvesting from it either. So then I spent a little time in creative and I came up with this design right here. Now I found a few designs where you'd move back and forth across a small number of vines, but I really needed a lot more than that, and the best way to ramp it up is just to include more vines. And then once I did that, there was no reason to have you move back and forth. Instead, I took a page from the ice farm I built a few weeks ago that was Nembom's design, where you've just got a water pattern that goes back and forth and back and forth, and then you just loop around to the beginning again. And that made it so it's a virtually redstone-less design. Now, even this is actually pretty small. I tested this out, and by the time you loop around, there might be 4 or 5 vines per row. This still isn't going to be sufficient for what I need. Now, since I built this in the theme of my ice farm, I thought it might be interesting. The ice farm is 6 chunks by 6 chunks, and the reason why you do that is because it keeps everything within the random tick radius while you're doing it. So that should be essentially the largest you could build a farm, the ice farm at least. I don't know if vines use random tick speed or just regular ticks. Doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna, what I'm gonna do, this thing needs a roof no matter what, because you don't want phantoms to spawn, so it needs a roof. So I'm actually gonna build this underneath my ice farm, and I'm gonna build it the size of my ice farm. I'm gonna build it really big. I actually don't think it will take that long to build it. Well, I built the thing out of diorite because I had a ton of it and it's not very useful for anything else. And this is 6 shulker boxes full of diorite, and I have run out. I've got a few more rows to go, but this is actually pretty big right now. So what I'm going to do, this is the return channel that sends you back. I'm just going to have the water channel run this way instead of continuing, and then I'll just end it right there. And if this doesn't end up being big enough, I can always come back and add the last couple rows. But for now, I think this will be fine. So I got to finish up a few last details, and then I'll run through the thing. It's basically all set up now. So the idea here is that I would fill up my inventory, and then I can't be wearing these depth strider boots. And then I would hop into this water right here, and I would point at that right there. So the iron trapdoor here is to keep the vines from popping back up onto this wall here. And they also keep me pointed at the right spot on this side, because if you point too low, you can actually end up hitting the ice at certain points. So I would point right there, and then I just let the water take me. And then there's a water collection here on this side that would bring the items all the way down. And then there's a chest over there. And so I would just go down a row like this. And then down at the end of the row, I think this is actually faster if I put my boots back on. Down at the end of the line, there is a pressure plate, dropper, and then a hopper like this. And the dropper is filled up with a bunch of shears coming from this chest over here. Whole bunch of shears, and so when you hit the pressure plate, it'll spit out a set of shears. And that's the idea behind filling up your inventory, is that if your shears break, then it'll pop back into the one open spot on your inventory, and if not, you won't have any open slots in your inventory, and it'll just spit it, and the water flow will send it back into the hopper, and then I'll recycle it for the next time. So this is at the end of every single row. So now what I have to do is I've got to go through, I didn't have enough vines to fill the whole thing, so I got to harvest it one time, and then hopefully that should give me enough vines to do the rest of it, and then I'll do a test run through the whole thing and see if everything's working well. Well, I let it run overnight, and I got not even a shulker box full of vines. This can't possibly be the result of it working well, because basically all the vines are fully grown right now, so something went really wrong. So I'm not sure exactly what happened here. So I guess I'll just do another run through and see if I notice any problems. Okay, here we go. Any corner like this needs to be made out of a block, because you're going to come around like this and you're going to be pointing down. So this one needs to be too. Needs to be made out of a block that can't be broken very quickly, so that I must have been stuck in the water stream right there, because as soon as you break this block, the water stream if you come this way, it's just going to stop you right there most likely. And then I just stood there all night, so that's probably what happened. I did a couple more runs through the farm. This is the second run right here. This is how many items I got from that. And each run takes about a half an hour. So it looks like it gets about a shulker box per hour. And so it's still not the fastest thing in the world, but, you know, I mean, it's doing pretty decent. This should put me up to about 2 shulker boxes full of vines. I wanted to get up to 4 shulker boxes. So it looks like now that everything's working, another AFK session should get me there fairly easily. So now I can tear this down right here and not have to worry about this at all anymore. And as you can see here, I'm also going to need a proper pumpkin farm at some point fairly soon. I'm not going to worry about that in this episode, but fairly soon I'm going to need to create a proper pumpkin farm. Might as well harvest these while I'm here. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I've also had to go through quite a number of potions. And so I set up this tiny little nether wart farm in the meanwhile, because I was running almost completely out of nether wart. I've got a fairly decent amount from this, but, you know, I mean, it's enough to brew potions, I guess, for a little while. But I do want to set up a proper nether wart farm. This is a design by Raiseworks and some of his fellow server members. It's a pretty cool design. Basically, you sit in the minecart and you move back and forth, and it uses some tricks with the iron trapdoor so that you can both place new nether wart and harvest the existing nether wart. He covers it really well in his video, so I'll put a link to that in the description. Now, this is a scalable design. Basically, you can do it as long as you want or as many rows as you want. Based on the weight configuration of my floating island, I've decided that I want to stack it. This here is 8 of those farms stacked on top of each other. I was originally going to do 6, but it ended up being almost exactly the same height as these 2 buildings, and it didn't quite look right, so I decided to stack 2 more on top, and I think that looks a little bit better. I do need to design an outside for this building. I don't think that should be too hard because it's actually already a pretty cool building, but I will worry about that later. So the idea here is approximately, still I need to fill up my inventory. I need to put nether wart in my offhand, fill up my inventory, and then I want to use a fortune tool. I can use an axe. It actually doesn't use up durability at all. And then I would sit in this right here, and I can use the switch if I want to do it continuously, or I can press the button to just do it once. And then I want to actually get my coordinates here. I want to be looking at 90 degrees, and then I'm going to end up going at -18. I want to point a little bit high. So I want to point like right there. But I got to press this button first, and then let's find I should be able to press both buttons. Once we get the right height, there we go. We're almost there. 20. There we go. And then that should both pick and replant only the ones that are grown all the way. Let me turn that off. Yeah, seems to be working really well. This is actually pretty cool. And then I have 8 levels of this. So by the time I come back around, pretty much all of them should be regrown by then. I neglected to power one piece of rail, but other than that, everything worked really, really well. So there are hopper minecarts at the end of every row. So when I reach this right here, it'd power this hopper minecart. This is part of his design already. And then I connected them all with hoppers, and they all go over into a chest over here, which probably isn't the best storage system. Usually I think about my storage systems ahead of time, and I haven't really with this one. I just kind of got it all shoved into a chest, which if I end up AFKing here for a while, that's probably not going to be sufficient. So I might need to think about what I want to do here. But let's see how we did on a single run here. Oh man, yeah, this chest is not going to be sufficient. That's a lot of nether wart for just one run. Yeah, so let me see what I can do about that. I think this is another case where I don't want to overthink the storage too much. So instead of a full-on shulker box loader, I've just set up this wall of shulker boxes. I've done this before in the past. It works well when you don't necessarily expect the farm to fill up a shulker box too fast. So you don't want to sit around waiting for the shulker boxes to load up. Instead, you just get them straight into the wall. I can expand this if I need to, and I think I can build this into the exterior of the building so I can get at it directly. And then I needed an item elevator to bring up these lower level items all the way up, and then these items actually just go straight into these hoppers here. So this seems to be working pretty well. I think this is what I want to go with. This tree here has been bugging me for quite some time. I don't know why specifically this tree, because there's 2 more trees right over there, and they don't bother me nearly as much. Maybe it's because this one's more central, but I need a nice custom tree like that one back there. These ones take me a little bit of time to set up, so we'll see if we can get to these trees. I doubt it. I really want to focus on this tree and see if we can spruce this up quite a bit. I ended up replacing all 3 trees. I wanted to get 3 trees of different sizes, and I think this one works really well. And I think this one is probably pretty fine. I think I probably made this one too small, and this is more like the small size tree. So at some point, I might try and get a size of tree, like replace that one with a tree that's halfway in between these 2 sizes, or something like that. I think this one's fine because it's right up against the building. I wouldn't want it to be much bigger than this, but I think this one's too small. I'm going to leave it like that for now, but I think these ones work really well, and then I will probably end up replacing this one in the future. I've got this door right here on the side of my sorting system, and this is my common AFK area. There's my concrete maker right here, and then I've got a bed back here that I use to sleep at, and usually I will just like sit here in AFK. So the door's got to be a door, an iron door with a button, so that if any mobs spawn out there, they can't get in here. So I can't put pressure plates down there. I can't really put a switch because I can't shut it from the other side. So I've always used a button, and the problem is that sometimes if you don't make it quite through the door fast enough, and this happens a lot more often on my laptop than on my PC, that you won't make it through. So I'd like to add a delay circuit to this door. It's not a really big project, but it's something I've been putting off for a while, and I'd like to get it done. Now, there's nothing too complicated about a delay circuit at all. Just a couple of comparators, and you've got like a burnout clock here, and then the circuit ends, and that works fine. There are some interesting complexities when attaching it to a door, however. Like, it's easy enough to put it down at this bottom block right here, and then you can power it down this way, and then we've got it coming back up to open the door that way. And this works fine, but I don't particularly like putting the buttons down there. So if you wanted to put the button up a block, one interesting thing you can do is you can put a redstone lamp and then have an observer fire off the redstone lamp, and then that will fire off the delay circuit. Or what I think I'm going to do is you can have a piston that fires down. Now this piston is connected via quasi-connectivity, and since there's nothing updating this piston, it won't actually fire off. So what I'm going to have to do here is actually set up an observer pointing down, and then that'll fire off that redstone right there. And if I put the door here, then the door opening will fire off the observer, and then the delay circuit fires off properly. We can actually see the piston fire off. There's a few other ways, like you can just use like a constant clock or something like that. It would be this. To constantly update that, I do not recommend doing something like that. But then you wouldn't need this observer here. It would work just fine. At least it should. Yeah, so that works fine. I don't recommend using a constant clock or anything like that. I mean, it's not the best thing in the world, most attractive in the world to have an observer sitting there underneath your door. But I think because it's behind the door, I think that's going to end up being fine. And I didn't really like the look of the redstone lamp either. So that's some interesting ways that you can connect up a door to a delay circuit. And then I won't have this issue on my laptop anymore. And it does fire from both ways. So that's pretty cool. All right, there we go. That was easy enough. And it should stay open for a little while longer. Very easy to go through. Never have to worry about it shutting on you. Very cool. I've got a few other projects I'd like to do around my base. As I said, I'm going to need a pumpkin farm. And I'm going to need to figure out where to put that because it's probably going to actually end up being pretty big. So I might put it underground. There's quite a bit of room under there. So that might work pretty well. And I'm also probably going to want a gray mushroom farm. I used up quite a bit of those when setting up the invisibility potions. They're also pretty useful for the weakness potions that I use on villagers. So I might want to set up a farm for that. But I've got a project that one of my commenters recommended that I think is going to be really cool. And that's what I want to work on my next episode. So I'll pepper these projects in when I can. And then lastly, my storage system here, I am starting to slowly outgrow this. Not only am I kind of limited in how it stores things because I've got so many farms at this point that it's just getting loaded up with shulker boxes full of things. But also I keep bringing back huge loads of items, and I've had the system clogged up twice now, and when that happens, it's actually a really big mess. So this is going to be a big project, and I am not going to start any more big projects until I've at least finished my nether hub. But I will be looking, I don't know, maybe 10 episodes into the future or something like that. It's going to require a lot of planning, but I'm probably going to want to rework my storage system. I'm going to have to figure out where to put that too, because this is already a big building. So I can build it further this way. I can keep growing it. I can build it up. I can build it down. So those are some things to consider as well. But run out of time for this episode. I know this episode is a little bit shorter than normal, but I got a lot done. I just didn't have a lot of footage for all of it, which is actually pretty abnormal. Usually I have so much footage I have to cut a bunch of stuff, but this time I just don't have that much footage because the projects actually went pretty smoothly. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this episode. I want to thank you very much for watching, and have a good one.